It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Yeah, it's a live Feedback Friday. I'm using the video. I'm trying out the Google Hangout option of YouTube, and that horn was my Slimer bike horn. I think this was like a McDonald's toy in the 1980s or something like that. Oh no, it's got the Columbia Pictures stamp on it. 1984 Columbia Pictures. So yes, I am a Ghostbusters fan from back in the day. You can see my collection of Ghostbusters stuff, loot. I, as a kid, was obsessed with Ghostbusters. I took a green pillowcase and made it into Slimer. And then I pretended empty Kleenex boxes were ghost traps. I think I put my hamster in it once and pretended it was a ghost. I really love Ghostbusters, and Egon was my favorite Ghostbuster, followed by Winston. Blanking on his name. Ernie Hudson, right, is one of the few like convention celebrities I've ever gone up and actually asked for an autograph. And I was dressed in my Slave Leia bikini at the time, and he signed the little 8x10 glossy thing. That's a big Twinkie. A few people have asked me to weigh in on the Ghostbusters trailer thing. They just say, are you going to comment on the Ghostbusters trailer? And I think part of that is, do you like it? And part of it is, what the controversy surrounding it. And I wasn't going to do it because of the controversy. I found that Twitter in general and certain comments have taken on a nastier tone since this started. Everybody's gotten all in a tizzy about it. I got called a slag for the first time in ages the other day. And I was like, what? And that was part of the reason I decided to actually talk about it and go on camera to show off my my memorabilia, because, you have to prove your fandom nowadays. And that's the first thing I don't like. People are entitled to opinions. And it shouldn't be seen as a negative if someone wasn't alive for the original Ghostbusters films. Everybody's going to access the new movies in new ways. What I need to be satisfied with a new Ghostbusters film is not going to be the same as somebody else's, and that's fine. With any film, especially any blockbuster film, different opinions are okay. But that seems to have gone out the window with this Ghostbusters thing, because of this all-female Ghostbusters thing, which is out the window now. In the latest trailer, there's shots of Chris Helmsworth, who's the Janine comparison character, the receptionist, in a Ghostbusters outfit. So, whoop, there you go. And this is my first sort of big pet peeve of the whole thing, is that I have this issue with a few shows now that are trying to do quote-unquote role reversals, but when they reverse the roles, they feel the need to have the men who take on the traditionally female role do more than the woman did in that part. The thing that made Annie Potts so awesome as Janine is every second she had on screen, she made count. And so instead of feeling like there was this female character in there to have a female character, you had she made sense as somebody in the 1980s, Ghostbusters, what do you want, sort of thing. She played her part. Chris Helmsworth, who is, in many ways the biggest name in the entire film, I think is going to draw attention away from the all-female Ghostbusters that aren't all female. The second trailer gives me hope the movie won't suck. It doesn't convince me the movie's going to be awesome. It just makes me think there will be some good moments. But the stuff, and I'm not sure this is even a fair criticism because of what I know about comedy and how it has to breathe. It's very hard to make a trailer for a comedy really funny because it's all in short little bites. What Disney films tend to do with those great trailers, like the Sloths in Zootopia, they take a clip of the film and release it in its entirety. So you get the pacing that's required for comedy, and then they cut that up after people have seen the whole thing and just use it as a reference in the trailers going forward. That's very effective. That's what I would have done marketing Ghostbusters. I would have had a scene that Deadpool did the same thing, right? They showed that it all possibly too much of the movie because they wanted people to know it was funny. There are signs in the trailer that the movie is trying to do too much of everything. And then, you know, what I liked about it is it did tell us an element of the story, which was lacking in the first one. The first one didn't tell me what the movie was about at all, other than it's Ghostbusters with women. But the story, as outlined in the trailer, has pivoted from here's these guys trying to make a buck in a lousy economy, and you know, there's an element of con artistry at first to them, and then of course the ghosts turn out to be real. But that character is missing. You see a lot of, are the Ghostbusters up to the task? And it seems to be a reboot that draws too closely to the original. I don't know why the original couldn't have happened. And this is because there's a commercial in the original Ghostbusters film, and franchises available is flashing across the bottom of the screen. I don't know why they just didn't have them take out a franchise. It's 4 friends who need jobs and, you know, remember the Ghostbusters from when they were a kid, and, you know, the plot can go from there. I don't see the need to start all over, because this is the problem that these legacy characters get into over and over and over again with fandom. The results are the same over and over and over again in fandom, and people don't learn. And it's that combination. It understands that we need to bring new fans in. It doesn't understand that we have to recognize that the only reason we care about this property now, because new ideas don't get made in Hollywood nowadays, everything has to be a book or a comic book. There's no straight up new properties, or very rarely. I can't think of one, actually. But you know, they're not paying respects to what's come before in an appropriate way. And I think, as you know, as a long-term fan, I think that's what people are responding to negatively more than that it's all women. I think that the fact that it's all women is being used as a distraction to the fact that it doesn't seem to be appropriately honoring the source material, other than having Slimer and what appears to be some form of Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But Slimer, I get. Another Stay Puft Marshmallow Man? Really? That's reinventing the wheel in sugary, delicious, monstrous, giant form. Now people think a Ghostbusters story must have Slimer, good thing, and must have Mr. Stay Puft. I'm not sure about that part, because Mr. Stay Puft was sort of almost like a giant robot device at the end. He's a marshmallow mech. He didn't have the same character. Hello, Momo. As Slimer. You gonna come up, Mom? Yeah, I personally, but that's my preference, right? Some people probably felt, oh, it's not going to be a Ghostbusters movie without Mr. Stay Puft. But Ghostbusters 2, I don't think, had Mr. Stay Puft. They had He is Vigo. That Vigo the Carpathian. I think that with the pink slime. Here comes Momo. There's Momo, my own Mr. Stay Puft. Say hi, Momo. Right? Hi, Momo. Yeah. I don't love the Ghostbusters trailers. I don't. I'm sorry. There's a lot of weaknesses as I'm seeing it. An over-reliance on slapstick. Because yes, there was, you know, Peter Venkman getting slimed, which was an iconic moment in film, yes. And then, you know, Mr. Stay Puft exploding and falling all over them and them all getting covered in marshmallows. There were those moments. But so much of it was the camaraderie and dialogue-driven comedy. And you know, the dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. And of course, they have a mass hysteria line in the trailer. I'm like, oh, don't. Just don't. That's like, you know, the only thing I can compare it to is I heard Bruce Springsteen doing a Prince cover, and it's Bruce Springsteen and it's Prince, and they're both awesome, but Bruce Springsteen doing Prince was not awesome. Their styles don't mesh. And so these are things that concern me. But the properties that have successfully respected existing fandoms have done quite well. I mean, obviously Star Wars, the Force Awakens is a good example of that. Old-time Star Wars fans couldn't stand the first three. Sorry, episodes 1, 2, and 3, the ones made in the 90s, because there was no, other than, you know, he eventually becomes Darth Vader, there wasn't a lot to tie them into the originals. They didn't have the same tone, too much special effects, overabundance on action, not so much on character, and there wasn't enough new, and they were trying to make you forget the first 3 movies to begin with. Not so much make you forget, but you know what I mean, right? Like, okay, those are old. That's the old and busted. This is the new hotness. And there seems to be an element of that in the reactions to this new Ghostbusters movie. Again, distracted by the all-female cast element. I think what people are reacting to more, I know when I reacted to, is we have that original Ghostbusters. We're happy with it. For a lot of us, we wouldn't change one thing about those movies. I mean, I'm sure the actors would want the special effects to be a little better, yada, yada, yada. But there are these moments, right? And like, people could say, oh, Venkman should have been less of a womanizer. But no, that was him. He was not a good person at the beginning of those movies. And that was relevant. Like, that was the point, right? And so it's disappointing, because now it's like they're trying to pass this off as, get out of the way, old Ghostbusters. Now it's the new Ghostbusters. And no, I have proof Ghostbusters existed before. You cannot take my, it is Ghostbusters. I love you, Slimer. We've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen it in, you know, comic books, where instead of creating new cool characters that everybody could sort of know and love, there was this replacement phenomenon. Female Thor was the one that everybody freaked out about, because they kept saying, no, she's Thor. She's not Lady Thor. She is Thor. That is her name. And then, of course, it turned out to not be true. And so not only did they make everybody upset, I believe deliberately, they were fan baiting, but I think they also lied. I mean, the Miles Morales is doing well as Spider-Man now. He overcame that hurdle. I think because there was less attention and less anger, and so it's easier for people to let go. Also, I think the book was just better written. But the character that everybody seemed to be cool with was Kamala Khan. Miss Marvel. And the reason I think she stood out is, first of all, she had a very distinct purpose. She looked different in her costume than the previous, Carol Danvers did. And the other thing is that Carol Danvers didn't get depowered. Carol Danvers didn't go away. She was promoted to Captain Marvel. So people like me who are Carol Danvers fans, who are Ms. Marvel fans, still have her. We still have those stories. The character is still being treated with love and respect by her publisher. And now we have this other character alongside who is cool and, you know, part of that Marvel family, for the Ms. Marvel family, for lack of a better term. And so we can like them both. We aren't being forced to choose. And I think that's critical. It's the same thing, like I said, with Star Wars, which the new ones with The Force Awakens, we have Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and Leia. And Leia became, you know, Leia got promoted too. It's sort of the same model. She's not Princess Leia anymore. She's General Leia. She has moved up the ladder, and so we can bring in Rey and not feel like we're trying to replace Princess Leia with Rey. And this is what I think has caused the huge uproar with Ghostbusters. It's not that they're women, because I mean, we've seen examples of, you know, using Deadpool again. Female villain in Deadpool, and they fight physically. It's Gina Carano. And she looks the part. She looks like she can kick some ass because she can. And everybody loves her. Everybody's like, wow, that's amazing. Nobody's went, oh, that poor woman, their violence against women, because she looks like she can fight. You know, she's not there for the sake of being a female character. She makes sense in the film. And yes, some people were upset about Rey in Star Wars, but that's because they made her overpowered. And again, I think that, and this is tricky, isn't it? Because they made her super awesome, more awesome than awesome because she's a female character, and so they think you have to try harder. And that's what people complained about. It wasn't that they're unwilling to accept a female character. It's that it was, there were an insufficient number of flaws and an insufficient amount of character to make it feel like a character instead of a point in some people's minds. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that assessment, but I can see where people are coming from. So there's my context on why people are freaking out. Yes, some people have taken some really nasty gendered slurs because they are angry. Other people, I think, have been falsely labeled misogynistic because it's an easy thing to say, and people are politicized, and you know, the troops have been called out, and this is now a culture war, and it shouldn't be. People can't go into a movie and laugh if they're thinking about politics. My God, stop it. This fight, the fight that has been, you know, the flames that have been fanned by some supporters of the film is actually going to impact people's ability to enjoy it as a comedy. And that's the greatest tragedy of the whole thing, is people are going to be thinking too hard to really laugh freely. And as a comedian, you know, as somebody who had to do comedy and infotainment, like comedy documentaries, it was a real challenge to make sure people were thinking, but thinking and just enough, not so much that they couldn't laugh for fear of feeling like they were a bad person. And that's the big challenge with women in comedy, is some people are afraid to laugh because they think it makes them a bad person. If something bad befalls a woman, you feel like you shouldn't laugh because, oh, that's patriarchy. Oh, that's misogyny. We just want to make people laugh. You know, I'd love to do more comedy. It's too hard on the internet right now because everyone is losing it. So I hope Ghostbusters is a good movie. I am probably going to wait for the reviews unless I see kind of a turnaround on behalf of the way this film is marketed. I want them to go positive. I don't want them to be all about this being this blow for women's rights or women's inclusion. No, I want to laugh. I want to see 4 talented women being funny in a movie. This is not a human rights ordinance. This is not, you know, an equal rights amendment. This is not universal suffrage. This is a movie where they fight giant marshmallow monsters. Put that in perspective when you're getting outraged.